What's up, Ragin Nation? How y'all doing? This is Alex. You watching the Ragin Ronin review. In this video, I will be reviewing Zero Dark 30. Zero Dark 30 is the latest film from Kathryn Bigelow, who also directed The Hurt Locker. The Hurt Locker was totally awesome, so I expected this movie to be just as awesome, if not awesomer. And let me tell you, it is the latter, because this movie is truly an amazing film. Now, before I get on with this review, I want to tell you that I'm not here to compare this film with the book. I'm also not here to compare this movie with how it went down in real life, because I don't know how it went down in real life, and neither do you, because you weren't there. I'm not here to talk about historical accuracies or inaccuracies or politics or the controversy surrounding this film. I'm here to review a film. So with that being said, I did not know what to expect going into this movie. I thought that this movie was going to be more like a military modern combat film. So like Black Hawk Down, Tears of the Sun. I thought it was going to be like that. But let me tell you, it is nothing like that at all. In fact, I think it's more like a spy thriller with a little bit of military combat. And I think that's the most accurate way to describe this movie. Because this movie is 2.5 hours long, but the first 2 hours is really just dialogue, and the final half hour is the combat. And we already know how this movie ends, okay? We already know that. I found out through Facebook, and this was back in 2011. I just know that he was just taken out by Navy SEALs. That's all I know. But I don't know how it really happened. But the most important part was not how he was taken out, but the process of getting to that point. This spans over 10 or 11 years. It was a 10 or 11 year manhunt after 9/11. And we're reminded of that from the very beginning of this movie, because it starts off with all these cries of help in these 911 calls for the victims of the World Trade Center. This really brings it home for us, because this was a very tragic event in our nation. So now that we went through this, the audience knows that we're watching this movie from the very beginning of this whole process to the very end. And like I said, even though I mentioned before that the last half hour is where the action is all at, the first 2 hours is still very captivating. And it's all because of Kathryn Bigelow's direction, and also the performance from Jessica Chastain. Jessica Chastain really drives the movie as the character of Maya. I don't even really know if that's like the real name of this person, but that is completely irrelevant to me. At the beginning of this movie, we didn't really care for her. We didn't know who she was. And we feel that because even the supporting characters, they don't even really know who she is, nor did they believe in what she stands for. But that's what's so great about this movie, because she's an underdog, and then she makes her way from being that underdog all the way to being one of the most important people involved with this mission. And that is the most exciting part in this movie. It's the character development. You watch her go through all these obstacles and red tape to get to this point where she's completely determined to take out Osama bin Laden. And I love that throughout this movie, she has to go through so much politics, so much emotions, and so many disasters to get to this point where she can get the approval and green light for this SEAL strike. And throughout this process, there are lots of conflicts. And it's not just conflicts with the antagonists, it is also a lot of internal conflicts. We as audiences and also members of the public in real life, we don't really know how it went down. What we're given here is a true account of how it went down. And Kathryn Bigelow knew that this would be fascinating to us, because we don't really understand this whole secret process of how the CIA works. The first 2 hours leading up to the raid on Osama bin Laden has some really captivating moments. And it's mainly because of the dialogue. It is not only well written, but it also shows us the importance and significance of all these supporting characters that are in this film, who are either pro or against Jessica Chastain's cause. And when I say against, I mean that these are people who don't believe in her. And there's a lot of people that don't believe in her. She wants this man killed. But in order to get there, they have to know that this man actually exists. And the CIA does not believe in 60 or 70% chances. They need 100% guaranteed proof. But she can't provide that. All she really has is how a lot of crimes are solved. And that is a gut feeling. And we as an audience, we want to root for her. We want to root for her so much. She has gone through so much, and we completely feel that through her development of these 11 years that this manhunt has lasted. This is essentially a movie where we see a woman's struggle to get things done. We have such a strong supporting cast. We got James Gandolfini, Mark Strong, Joel Edgerton, Jason Clarke. Mark Strong is a character I really love in this film. When he shows his face in the screen, he really just throws down. And later on, you see the character of Maya just upstages him, and it really just creates for some great scenes of chemistry for Jessica Chastain and Mark Strong. And not only that, Jason Clarke's performance as Dan was a total badass. I didn't like him at first, but then after I found out what he really does and how he contributes to the mission, I really just love his character. He's a badass on the field and also in the office wearing a suit, because he is someone who gets things done on and off the field. I love that Dan and Maya have this kind of professional relationship, and whatever Maya needs, Dan gets it for her. And it could be either by getting his hands dirty or just fronting up some cash, or just doing some simple negotiation. He is a well-rounded character, and I love the way he was written. So ultimately, what makes this movie so great is these characters, these well-written characters. And when I say the characters, I'm talking about the chemistry and also the actual dialogue. One thing that I gotta mention is I love the use of the F-bomb. It just feels so appropriate whenever it is being used, and it actually complements the character whenever they use it. But after all this dialogue and all this development and the whole process of locating this America's Most Wanted man, it all comes down to the grand finale. This is a spy movie. I'm not talking about a spy movie in the sense of Jason Bourne or Ethan Hunt or James Bond. I'm talking about real CIA spy stuff. We're talking about covert operations, gathering intel, surveillance. All these little elements finally lead us into this grand finale. And this finale is just so brilliantly directed. A lot of people who are expecting a generic kind of military combat film are going to see something totally different. And this is something that I've never seen before, and I love the way it was done because it was so subtle, but at the same time it was so intense. This is what I'd like to call action without action, because there wasn't a whole lot of action in it, but it was so exciting and it was so intense and it was just completely engaging throughout. There's not a whole lot of explosions and not a whole lot of gore, and not a whole lot of gun sounds either. But all these things that weren't there made this sequence so unique. Before they went to the raid, they were on these helicopters. And the helicopter flight through these mountains was probably 2 or 3 minutes. And that was a very intense scene. It was because of the music, it was the direction, it was the performances, and it was just the thought of these SEALs going in to find America's Most Wanted. We really see what these SEALs are going through. They're not really chatting, they're looking at each other, they're looking at their gun, they're looking on the floor, but deep down inside, we know what's going on through their heads. And that is just a roller coaster of emotions that they're going through. But at the same time, they have to stay focused and professional and do what needs to be done. And I absolutely love how the SEALs were portrayed. I don't know anything about military combat except for what I've seen in the movies. But what I saw here felt realistic to me. When I saw these guys before the combat, they just looked like normal guys, but when they're in a situation, they got their game faces on. And those scenes were so cool, because not only do you see how they operate in the field, but the sequence itself was just really exciting. Even though, like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of action, but all that sneaking around and breaking down doors and just looking through night vision around the house was just so intense. And Catherine Bigelow really put us in the middle of that combat, and that is exactly how I felt. I felt like I was there with those SEALs in this raid. I felt like I was a part of that. And I think a lot of the audience members who were watching this movie felt that as well. I saw that a lot of audiences were on the edge of their seat. They really want to see how it goes down and also what this 2-hour buildup was all about. This is what it all comes down to. And it's a great finale, but it's spectacular on a more emotional level. In fact, it's kind of eerie in a way, and it really feels like they're there to hunt a ghost. This man doesn't really even technically exist, and we feel that. And Catherine Bigelow wanted us to feel that as we're watching it, because this is exactly how the SEALs felt. When they're there, I felt that the SEALs couldn't really even believe it was happening. These SEALs, while they play a very important role in this movie, in the film, they're still secondary, and the only face that really represents them is their squadron leader, played by Joel Edgerton. And that is something that I find was very unique about the direction, because Catherine Bigelow didn't want us to focus on all these different SEALs. She wanted us to focus on the action, but at the same time, every single one of these SEALs are crucial for this mission. You feel that these SEALs are completely invested on what they need to do, and even though they never really show their faces and have these night vision goggles on, you know that their role there is just as important, if not more important, than what Jessica Chastain has been doing all along. At the end of the day, the SEALs Maya, and all these other supporting characters, they all want one thing. And it's also the one thing that we audiences want as well. And Kathryn Bigelow gives us that. And what she gives us is a completely engaging and brilliantly directed film. 9.25 out of 10. What an amazing movie. Must see, highly recommended. I'm so happy to know that the first movie that I see in 2013 was just awesome. If you've already seen Zero Dark 30, let me know in the comment section below how you felt about it. As always, if you enjoyed this review, hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation, and also follow me on Twitter at Ragin Nation. My name is Alex Yu, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Quite back, at least not in the director's chair. He's going to be serving as a producer only, but that doesn't mean it's going to suck that much. I mean, the third one was just okay. There's some things that